Murder at the Michaelmas Fayre, a Miss Marple mystery. Hi there, welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight's mystery begins at the annual Michaelmas Fayre, where bright lanterns, cheerful music and bustling crowds fill the village square. It is a night of celebration, tradition and community until a shocking discovery turns the festivities into a scene of suspicion. As whispers spread through the fairgrounds, Miss Marple notices what others overlook: a missing visitor, a hurried conversation, and a clue hidden among the colorful stalls. Because beneath the laughter and festivities, someone came to the fair with a deadly purpose. Before we uncover the truth behind the murder at the Michaelmas Fayre, don't forget to subscribe for more haunting Miss Marple mysteries on Haunting Vales.
Chapter 1. The Stranger at the Michaelmas Fayre. The Michaelmas Fayre came to St. Mary Mead on a bright autumn morning. Golden leaves drifted across the village green. Colourful tents stood in neat rows. The scent of fresh bread and roasted chestnuts filled the air. Children laughed as they chased one another between the stalls. Farmers proudly displayed giant pumpkins and baskets overflowing with apples. A brass band played cheerful tunes beneath the old oak trees. To any visitor, it seemed the perfect village celebration. Miss Marple watched it all from a wooden bench near the church gate. Her knitting rested quietly in her lap. She appeared to be enjoying the festivities like everyone else, yet her sharp blue eyes missed very little. Over the years, she had learned that trouble often arrived when people felt safest. A village fair might look harmless, but human nature was rarely simple. By midday, the crowds had doubled. Visitors arrived from neighboring villages. The green buzzed with excitement. Everywhere there were competitions and games. Children lined up for sweets. Housewives compared jams and preserves. Farmers argued good-naturedly over livestock prizes. The Michaelmas Fayre had always been the pride of St. Mary Mead. Then a motor car appeared at the edge of the green. The vehicle moved slowly through the crowd until it stopped beside the village hall. Conversations faded. Smiles became uncertain. Even the brass band seemed quieter. A tall gentleman stepped out. Rupert Ashcombe. The name carried weight throughout the county. He was wealthy, influential, and known for leaving trouble wherever he went. Ashcombe removed his gloves and smiled at the villagers. It was the sort of smile that looked friendly from a distance, yet somehow never reached the eyes. He greeted several people as though they were old friends. Most returned his greeting politely. Few appeared pleased to see him. Miss Marple noticed this at once. The baker frowned as Ashcombe passed. The butcher suddenly found something very important to examine behind his stall. Even Mrs. Hargreaves, usually eager for conversation, turned away and pretended to arrange flowers. Interesting. Very interesting. Ashcombe spent the afternoon wandering through the fair. He bought raffle tickets, sampled cakes, shook hands, made jokes. To an outsider, he might have appeared popular, yet whispers followed him from stall to stall. He ruined poor Martin Ellis years ago. Never trusted that man. Some people don't forget. The remarks were hushed, careful, but they carried a bitterness that time had failed to erase. As the afternoon stretched towards evening, dark clouds gathered beyond the distant hills. The air became cooler. Shadows lengthened across the green. Lanterns were lit around the fairground. Their warm glow gave the celebration an almost magical appearance. At 6 o'clock, the crowd gathered before a wooden platform outside the village hall. The grand raffle drawing was about to begin. Villagers pressed together eagerly. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders. Excitement rippled through the crowd. Rupert Ashcombe climbed onto the platform. He appeared confident, relaxed. A microphone had been arranged for him. He cleared his throat and smiled. "My friends," he began, "before the raffle begins, I have an announcement." The crowd fell silent. Ashcombe reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a sheet of paper. What happened next would haunt St. Mary Mead for years. As Ashcombe looked down at the page, his expression changed, only slightly, but Miss Marple saw it. Shock, fear, recognition. For a brief moment, the color drained from his face. Then he glanced into the crowd. Not at everyone, at someone. A single person standing among the villagers. Miss Marple followed his gaze, yet a movement nearby blocked her view for only a second. When she looked again, whoever had caught Ashcombe's attention was hidden among the crowd. Ashcombe swallowed hard. His hand trembled. The paper slipped slightly between his fingers. For the first time that evening, he looked frightened. Then came a scream, a woman's scream, sharp, sudden, terrified. The crowd turned instinctively, and in that single moment of confusion, something happened on the platform. Ashcombe staggered backwards, his eyes widened, the paper fluttered from his hand. For a heartbeat, nobody understood what they were seeing. Then he collapsed heavily onto the wooden boards. The microphone crashed beside him. Gasps erupted across the fairground. People surged forward, others backed away in horror. The brass band fell silent. The lanterns flickered in the evening breeze. And at the center of the chaos, Rupert Ashcombe lay motionless on the platform. Dead. While somewhere among the frightened crowd, a killer quietly slipped away into the gathering darkness.
Chapter 2. Whispers Beneath the Fairground Lights. The news spread through St. Mary Mead before sunrise. By breakfast time, every cottage, every shop, every garden gate carried the same conversation. Rupert Ashcombe was dead. The cheerful atmosphere of the Michaelmas Fayre had vanished completely. The bright tents still stood upon the village green. The lanterns still hung from wooden poles. The prize pumpkins remained where they had been displayed the day before. Yet everything felt different now, as though a shadow had settled over the village during the night. Police officers arrived early and began searching the fairground. Ropes were placed around the platform where Ashcombe had fallen. Villagers gathered nearby in small groups, speaking quietly, watching nervously. Nobody seemed eager to return home. Miss Marple understood why. Murder created a strange feeling in a village. People became suspicious of neighbors they had known for years. Old disagreements suddenly seemed important. Harmless remarks gained new meaning. Everyone wondered the same thing. Who among them was capable of killing a man? The doctor had examined Ashcombe's body late the previous evening. His findings surprised everyone. There had been no visible wound, no sign of a struggle, no obvious cause of death. It was as though the wealthy gentleman had simply collapsed where he stood. Yet the doctor's expression told a different story. Something was wrong, very wrong. Miss Marple spent the morning doing what she did best, listening. She visited the bakery first. The queue stretched almost to the door. Nobody spoke about bread. Everyone spoke about murder. According to one villager, Rupert Ashcombe had cheated several people out of money many years ago. According to another, he had recently threatened legal action against a local businessman. A third claimed he had overheard a heated argument only hours before the death. Each story sounded convincing, each provided a possible motive, and each made the mystery more complicated. By noon, Miss Marple had collected enough gossip to fill an entire notebook. Yet one detail bothered her. Many villagers disliked Rupert Ashcombe, but hatred alone did not make someone a killer. There had to be something more. That afternoon, she walked slowly around the abandoned fairground. The wind stirred loose papers across the grass. Empty stalls creaked softly. The place felt lonely now, almost ghostly.
As she approached the raffle platform, she noticed a police officer speaking with an elderly groundskeeper. The old man looked uncomfortable. Miss Marple paused nearby, not close enough to appear interested, close enough to hear. The groundskeeper claimed he had seen a young woman near the platform shortly before Ashcombe collapsed. Nobody recognized her. She wasn't from St. Mary Mead. She wasn't from any neighboring village either. The woman had worn a dark coat and hat pulled low across her face. She had remained near the edge of the crowd, watching the platform carefully. Then, after the murder, she vanished. No one could find her. No one knew her name. The description spread quickly through the village, yet nobody stepped forward with useful information. It was as though she had appeared from nowhere and disappeared into nowhere. That evening, Miss Marple sat beside her sitting room window. A fire crackled softly in the grate. Outside, rain tapped gently against the glass. Her thoughts returned again and again to Rupert Ashcombe's final moments. The fear in his eyes, the sudden change in expression, the way he had stared into the crowd. He had recognized something, or someone. Of that she felt certain. Then came another development. One of the policemen arrived carrying a small evidence bag. A piece of paper had been discovered beneath the platform. The paper was torn, creased, and partly stained by mud. Only a few words remained visible, yet they were enough to cause alarm, because written upon the scrap was a name. Not Rupert Ashcombe, someone else's. A name connected to an old scandal that had shaken the county years before, a scandal many believed had been forgotten. The police immediately began investigating the connection, but Miss Marple's attention fixed upon something else, the handwriting. It appeared hurried, almost desperate, as though whoever had written it had been frightened or running out of time. The discovery changed everything. Perhaps Rupert Ashcombe was not the true target. Perhaps his death was linked to something buried deep in the past, something dangerous, something that certain people would kill to keep hidden. Late that night, another witness came forward, a young stable hand. His statement caused even greater concern. He claimed that shortly before the murder, he had seen Ashcombe arguing with an unknown man behind one of the fair tents. The conversation was heated, angry. The stable hand could not hear every word, but he remembered one sentence clearly, and that sentence now echoed through the investigation. "You should have left it buried." Those words lingered in Miss Marple's mind long after darkness settled over the village. Outside her window, the rain continued to fall. Inside the quiet house, she stared thoughtfully into the fire. Somewhere within the tangled history of Rupert Ashcombe's life lay the answer. She could feel it. The murder at the Michaelmas Fayre was no random act. It was connected to secrets, old secrets, dangerous secrets. And before long, another person would discover just how deadly those secrets truly were.
Chapter 3. The Secret of the Michaelmas Fayre. For several days, the mystery gripped St. Mary Mead. The Michaelmas Fayre was over. The stalls stood empty. The lanterns had gone dark, yet nobody could stop talking about Rupert Ashcombe's death. The police continued their investigation. They questioned villagers, examined old records, followed every possible lead. Still, the answer remained frustratingly out of reach. Miss Marple carried on in her own quiet way. She listened carefully. She watched people, and she waited. Soon enough, a small but important detail emerged. The young stable hand who had witnessed Ashcombe's final hours returned with new information. On the afternoon of the murder, he had overheard a private conversation. Rupert Ashcombe had been speaking to a woman near the edge of the fairground. The gentleman had seemed nervous, almost frightened. The woman had remained calm,
Before walking away, she had spoken a sentence the stable hand never forgot. "You should have told the truth years ago." Those words stayed with Miss Marple. The following day, she visited an elderly solicitor who had known Ashcombe many years earlier. After some persuasion, the old man revealed a secret buried deep in the past. 20 years before, a local labourer named Thomas Harwood had died under suspicious circumstances. The death had officially been ruled an accident, yet rumours had never disappeared. Many believed important evidence had been hidden, and Rupert Ashcombe's name had always lingered around the case. At last, everything began to make sense. Ashcombe had not been hiding from an enemy, he had been hiding from the truth. Soon afterwards, the mysterious woman from the fair was identified. Her name was Eleanor Harwood, Thomas Harwood's daughter. For years she had investigated her father's death. Piece by piece she had gathered evidence. She had come to St. Mary Mead seeking answers. The villagers immediately suspected her. After all, she had motive. She had confronted Ashcombe, and she had been seen near the platform before the murder. Yet Miss Marple remained unconvinced. Something didn't fit. Eleanor wanted the truth revealed. She wanted Ashcombe exposed. His death achieved neither of those things. A dead man could not confess. A dead man could not face justice. That simple fact led Miss Marple to the real answer. She gathered the police and several villagers inside the village hall. The room fell silent as she explained her conclusions. Rupert Ashcombe had planned to make a public confession during the raffle announcement. Years of guilt had finally become too much to bear. He intended to reveal everything he knew about Thomas Harwood's death. But someone else involved in the old cover-up could not allow that to happen. Someone respected, someone trusted, someone who had remained close to the investigation from the very beginning. The killer had poisoned Ashcombe shortly before his speech. A quick and silent method, the perfect way to stop a confession forever. When confronted with the evidence, the murderer finally broke down and confessed. The truth that had remained hidden for 2 decades came pouring out. Thomas Harwood's death had not been the accident everyone believed. Important facts had indeed been concealed. Rupert Ashcombe had helped hide the truth, but he had not acted alone. At last, justice was served. The case was closed, and the dark secret behind the Michaelmas Fayre was finally exposed. A few days later, the fairground was dismantled. The tents vanished. The stalls were packed away. Life slowly returned to normal. One evening, Miss Marple stood by her cottage window, watching autumn leaves drift across the lane. St. Mary Mead seemed peaceful once again. But she knew better than most. Behind the neat gardens and friendly smiles, secrets always waited, and sometimes those secrets killed. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your theory in the comments. Were you able to solve the case before Miss Marple, or did the truth catch you by surprise? Until next time, keep looking closely at quiet villages. They often hide the darkest stories of all.